Welcome, everybody. This is LA Progressive again, Dick and Sharon. Today, we're here with our friend and colleague, Professor Melina Abdullah, who's a longtime professor at Cal State LA and the leading light in Black Lives Matter and founder of Black Lives Matter LA. Thanks so much for joining us, Melina. How are you doing?
I'm okay. Thanks so much for having me.
Oh, it's such a pleasure. One of the things that prompted this interview is a piece that you have running in the LA Sentinel, Attempted Murder of Black Lives Matter, which is in the LA Sentinel, and you have graciously allowed us to republish it. So I just wanted to talk about that piece. And then I also mentioned to you that I'm really interested in us doing sort of an ongoing update of what's happening with Black Lives Matter LA, Black Lives Matter Grassroots.
Yes, I would love that. Thank you for that. And thank you for always covering what we do. So we appreciate that.
Thank you so much. So let's talk about the article and the assertion that there is an attempted murder of the Black Lives Matter LA movement or Black Lives Matter grassroots movement.
Yeah, so what the article is really about is the struggle we've been engaged in around the last year and a half. So about a year and a half ago, the legal levers of Black Lives Matter were entrusted to a highly paid consultant who goes by the name of Shalomia Bowers. Now, just to be clear, I've never had any legal authority, never been an employee of, never been on the board of Black Lives Matter Global Network Foundation, which was formed as a legal entity by one of our co-founders, Patrisse Cullors. And so as she stepped back, she wrote a transition plan, which first we were looking for someone who could manage the foundation. So there's two beautiful, brilliant sisters who are entrenched, deeply embedded in movement, Makani Temba and Monifa Bandele. They were going to run the foundation. I was going to continue to help lead the work with Black Lives Matter Grassroots, which is the chapters and the movement on the ground. They decided not to take over the foundation because there were some issues with sharing the financial picture with them, and they didn't want to step into a situation that they were unsure of. And so Patrisse wrote a transition plan to transition the resources that were being held, and by resources, I mean the many millions, tens of millions of dollars, maybe up to $100 million that was being held by the Black Lives Matter Global Network Foundation, how to transition that, as well as our social media platforms, as well as our name, which, includes the website, mailing lists, and all of that, over to Black Lives Matter Grassroots. So she wrote a transition plan to do that, but had also left the legal authority to this consultant who in 2020 was paid $2.2 million. So Shalomia Bowers one day calls me in March of 2022 and says, I intend to hold everything indefinitely. And that was the beginning of the fight. And so the fight is, we want our stuff back. The people on the ground, the people who birthed, built, and fuel Black Lives Matter need those resources, need those platforms, and we want our good name back. And that's what the article was about, so that people could understand also the trajectory that we began by asking, no, give it back. Then we included a chorus of voices from Black organizers, please give them their stuff back. Then we went public and had a public letter, give them their stuff back. And at every turn, it was a no. Finally, we filed a lawsuit, and that lawsuit was stalled with an anti-SLAPP motion that has prevented us from even making our case in court. And so as they did that, they also filed a claim for us to pay them attorney's fees for even daring to sue them. And so they know that there's an attempt really to kill the Black Lives Matter movement. And it seems like the fiercest attempt is coming from people who claim to be inside of movement, but are really just lining their own pockets.
So So we follow what you do and what Black Lives Matter grassroots do. And even without those resources and the website and the mailing list, you're still in the streets, in the city council meetings, in the county supervisors meeting. You're still raising the kind of hell that people support Black Lives Matters for. And I look at the Global Network Foundation's website, and it's a nicely designed professional website, but it's sparse. The latest update was from July. You can donate to them and you can buy t-shirts, but they don't really have any activity. Do they claim to be doing good work, or is this just a cynical money grab?
In my view, it's a money grab, right? They don't have organizers on the ground. They are not really moving to end state-sanctioned violence against Black people, which is our charge and our mission, right? They make good statements. They hire, again, as has been lifted, very professional consultants to do things for them, but they are not the movement, the abolitionist movement that Black Lives Matter was birthed to be. Two of the three of them have never even been to a Black Lives Matter protest. And the third one only went because she's my former student and it was a class assignment. So it's really important that we understand that Black Lives Matter grassroots is Black Lives Matter. And I'm grateful that you see what we do in Los Angeles. And I want to lift up, we're doing that all around the country. There's 33 chapters. And today, for instance, is the angelversary, the first angelversary of a young 15-year-old child, Jaheim McMillan, who was killed by Gulfport police. What's happening in Gulfport right now is Black Lives Matter grassroots standing alongside his mother, Katrina Mateen, as we have for the last year, and lifting up Jaheim's name, but also saying that we got to struggle for justice in his name, even when it looks bleak. We got to struggle for justice. We could do a much more effective job if we had our platforms and if we had our dollars. And so that's what we're fighting to regain. But regardless, if we get it back or not, we're going to continue to do the work.
Yeah, you've already demonstrated that that is true, that regardless of whether you have money or don't have money, that you will be out there, and that those people who are really committed to the mission of Black Lives Matter grassroots will continue to be out there. And we saw that when there was a 10th year anniversary celebration in July in Leimert Park. You want to talk about that celebration, Cornel West and all of the people that came out to uplift the great work that's been going on?
Sure, it was a beautiful gathering. It was, a very hot day, and we still had almost 3,000 folks in the street. And we did it, we were thinking about what to do, and we did it in the way that Black Lives Matter does things. So we had 7 different activation spaces, including a main stage where we were joined by presidential candidate and one of the most brilliant human beings on this planet, Dr. Cornel West, came and offered our keynote address. Tavis Smiley served as a host. We had music. We had Chuck D of Public Enemy come out. We had Sabrina Fulton, the mother of Trayvon Martin. And we got to remember, Black Lives Matter was birthed when Trayvon's murderer was acquitted. So it meant the world to have Sister Sabrina Fulton with us. And we had probably 100 families out there, families from Los Angeles, like the family of Kenneth Ross Jr., the family of Waukesha Wilson, family of Ryan Twyman, and I could go on, but also families from around the country. So Jalen Randall's mom was out here from Houston, and we had the family of Tyler Lewis from Buffalo, and we had Jacob Blake Sr. out here. He lives in North Carolina, but people will remember that his son, Jacob Blake, was shot in the back in Wisconsin, right? So Breonna Taylor's family was here. So there were probably 100 families out, and I think that was the most important. And then we had Black Lives Matter chapters from all around the country. So Phoenix and Detroit and Buffalo and Mississippi All of these chapters came and joined, and then they were in spaces not just around the stage, which was always full with all kinds of incredible people, some of whom we named. I could keep going. Elaine Brown was there, Kat Brooks was there, lots of different folks there. But also, if you went inside some of the buildings in Leimert Park Village, and we know that Leimert Park Village is our Africa town, right? So all of these spaces opened up and said, Black Lives Matter to us, and you're part of this community, and we're proud of you, and we need you to keep going. So we had Hot and Cool Cafe opened up, and we had a political education space, an organizing space that was led by Baba Akili. We had our own Center for Black Power, which was our study and struggle space, which was brilliantly led by Dr. Tabitha Jones Jolivet and Audrina Redmond of Black Lives Matter Long Beach. We had a space across Crenshaw that was our healing justice space. And this gathering, of course, happens just as we had helped to win the release of Dr. Mutulu Shakur. So to have a healing justice space was really, really important. So all of these spaces, we had a youth space, we had all kinds of stuff going on, an ally space where non-Black people of color contemplated how do they invest themselves in the struggle for Black freedom. So it was just brilliant and beautiful. We're grateful to the LA Progressive, and also to James Farr in particular for making sure it was all very well documented, because that's something that we're not always the best at. We're good at having what's needed, but not always the best at telling our own stories and documenting. So grateful to you all for helping us do that.
Well, thank you so much, Melina. So in thinking about the future of Black Lives Matter grassroots and the conflict, and Dick kind of touched on it, if you go to the Global Network Foundation, they're still collecting donations. Is there a vision for beyond the lawsuit? And maybe the lawsuit or the appeal will provide a remedy to this situation, but the greater public doesn't seem to be able to make a distinction between Black Lives Matter Global Network Foundation, Black Lives Matter Grassroots, Black Lives Matter LA. You want to talk a little bit about the distinction between those different organizations?
Sure. So all of the chapters populate Black Lives Matter Grassroots. Black Lives Matter Grassroots is what people think of when they think of Black Lives Matter. They don't think of a foundation that goes and, says, hey, we got to make sure that we flip the House, right? We're not the Democratic Party, right? Nobody supports Black Lives Matter because they need us to be the Democratic Party. If they want to support the Democratic Party, they would donate to the Democratic Party, right? Black Lives Matter Grassroots, we incorporate art into what we do, but we're not an arts organization that buys, $6.5 million mansions for artists to live in and pays them six-figure salaries to do that. If you wanted to do that, if your primary gift and love was art, we would encourage you to donate to organizations like the Fernando Pullum Center for the Performing Arts. There's lots that you could do. When people think of Black Lives Matter, though, they think of boots on the ground who are going to stand up against, in Los Angeles, the 17 people who've been killed so far by police in 2023 alone. They want us to stand alongside Tiffany Rochelle as we do a banner drop tomorrow in Houston, Texas, because Jalen's case is making its way back to the grand jury. They want us to push back against the white supremacists who murdered 10 of our folks inside that Tops grocery store in Buffalo, New York. They want us to struggle against a white supremacist curriculum that's being advanced in Florida and struggle for Black studies instead. And that's what Black Lives Matter has been and will always be under the banner of Black Lives Matter Grassroots. People can support the real Black Lives Matter. I feel like I'm remember the Roxanne battles of the 1980s. I feel like I'm the real Roxanne, right? Saying support, you know, the real deal, support Black Lives Matter, support people who've been on the ground for the last 10 years, like me, like Baba Akili, like Mama Paula. And then we can think about people like our Black Lives Matter grassroots Florida chapter is run by the parents of Andrew Joseph III, right? So these are the people that you want advancing Black freedom. People can support us by donating at blmgrassroots.org. They can also go to our social media at BLM Grassroots, and we need more followers. We need you to follow, not just because we get a kick out of having a lot of followers, but because when you follow, we can share important information. Our Stop Cop City work in Atlanta, you want to be plugged in to what's happening. We are having a huge mobilization along with community movement builders, along with Movement for Black Lives, along with organizers like Queen Yonajaha. They're calling everybody to Atlanta in November so we can stop Cop City. If you want to know about what's going on the ground, how we're struggling for Black freedom, we need you to follow BLM Grassroots.
So what's here in Los Angeles? What's the current project that BLM Grassroots is looking at in the near future?
Sure. So it's a lot. What we're doing, if Baba Akili were on, he would yell it, but I'm not him, so I'll say it. Every Wednesday, we protest in front of the LA Police Protective League. We're chanting down the LA Police Protective League, which is not a union. It's a police association, and this is one of our national efforts, is to end police associations. As we have move into hot labor fall, right? We know that real workers have to fight and even strike for fair wages and fair working conditions. You know who doesn't have to fight? Cops, right? They just waltz in and say, you know what starting salary should be for a cop? $97,000 a year. Look, I'm a tenured professor and I've been on my job for 21 years. I still don't make $97,000 a year. Cops don't have to fight because cops are not workers. They're protectors of the ownership class. They protect the bosses. They bust up strikes. They don't have them, right? And so one of the things that we're doing nationally, but we center in Los Angeles, is this Wednesday 4 p.m. protest. We've been there almost 2.5 years protesting the police associations. Other things we're doing in Los Angeles are saying we got to get rid of this police chief. Michael Moore is responsible for now 29 people being shot by LAPD so far this year, and 17 of them dying at the hands of LAPD. So we're saying Moore must go, and we're asking everybody to sign a petition to get rid of him. That's tinyurl.com/Moore, MOORE, must go. And then, of course, we're standing alongside families. Next week, the family of Christopher DeAndre Mitchell, who was murdered by police in Torrance. We've gotten some of those police who've killed people, they're facing criminal charges, including Christopher DeAndre Mitchell's killers. And so we're going to be in court alongside his mother and his family next week. And we continue to fight alongside these families to make sure we get as much justice in their names as we can. Of course, there's lots more removing police from schools, making sure we fully invest in the Black Student Achievement Plan in Los Angeles. And we organize, it's not just what you see in the streets, it's what we also do that everybody doesn't see every second Sunday, which means this coming Sunday, we're having a Black Lives Matter organizing meeting, Sunday, 7 p.m. at the building that we bought, which is not a mansion. If you want to know what your dollars did for Black Lives Matter Los Angeles, we bought an organizing space called the Center for Black Power in the heart of Africatown, right on 43rd Place in Crenshaw. And every second Sunday of the month, we have our Black Lives Matter Los Angeles organizing meeting. We invite everyone except for politicians, cops, and haters to come and join us second Sundays at 7 p.m. You'll get a hot meal, you'll get an organic grocery bag to take home, and you'll get to organize with lots of folks. This month, we're organizing about how to make sure that racist, violent Kevin De Leon is not reelected to CD 14. So we invite everybody to be a part of that work.
Great. Well, Melina Abdullah, it's been a pleasure talking to you. As usual, you're just full of information. We want to continue this conversation. We will be embedding this video in the article that you've written, that you've graciously allowed us to republish on the LA Progressive that originally came from the Los Angeles Sentinel. And is there anything that you'd like to say in closing?
I'll just say that when we fight, we win. We know these struggles are big and they seem insurmountable, but our people ended chattel slavery, right? Our people ended the first wave of lynching. Our people won civil rights. We ended apartheid, right? So we can win this. This ain't nothing. Just we need everybody in the fight. So please hop in it. Follow BLM Grassroots for more.
Thanks for letting us interrupt your lunch.
All right.
We'll talk to you.
Thank you.